Me on Friday, or rather Saturday early morning. So he wanted me to give a difference between Buddha teaching and Advaita or non-dual, because he's been a devotee of Ramana Maharshi in the past, and he used to follow him extensively, and then he got stuck somewhere and he didn't know what next to be done. 1 minute. So, 1 second. So I was telling him that I will do it. I'll do one video for you. Then I thought, let me do it today. So, is it okay for all of you?
Yeah, fine. It's okay for me.
Okay, what about the other two?
Fine.
So, anyway, this topic I wanted to do it one day. So, of giving you where the jump is. So, in the meanwhile, he spoke to me about that, and then I felt, okay, this might help, whatever, because we have now come to Nididhyasana portion of Viveka Chudamani, wherein we need to see how do we jump, because that's what it talks about. So you can ask me a question at any time. So I will be talking about what are the similarities and difference between the Advaita and Buddha teaching, or non-dual with Buddha. So let's take Advaita. What needs to be done? So both of them, that is the Buddha teaching as well as Advaita, looks at a mindset that it is here and now. The urgency is what it should be, not laxity or let us see tomorrow. I have this and I have that. I have these family life and working life and all that. In that aspect, the Hindu tradition of going by 25 years of brahmacharya and 25 years of grihastha makes sense, because at the age of 50, at that time people used to marry at 25. So by 50th year, the child is 24 or 25 or whatever that year old, and then the person can take care of himself. And if it's a girl child, that person would have got married and had his or sorry her own children. So there was no need for this person to continue the grind of samsara of earning and taking care of family. So now in this current context, I think we need to add another 5 years more, like 55, let's say. So 55 should be the maximum amount of years somebody is striving on the samsara. And as soon as the person's age turns 55, he should leave everything in the hands of the wife or the husband, or if they both want to go away, then they can give it in the hands of their children and vacate the place, because it's of no use. So this is what both the um, philosophies believe in. If that urgency is not there, then it doesn't make any sense, because as the person ages, his or her the senses keeps on diminishing, and the body keeps on diminishing as well. So the person becomes more aged and cannot have strength to withstand the discomfort of sannyasa. So that being the case, it is always preferable that the person gives up everything at least at 55, the best at 50. or even best within 40, or the excellent one is within 15. So now that we have crossed all of those ages, and there's no point in feeling bad that we missed the opportunity. So those wanting liberation should do it right here, right now, if they are above 50. That's the first thing what these two philosophies demand from the sadhaka, or the person who is interested on this path. So, that being the case, Advaita then lays down the rules of the game. So, certain things have to be put in place immediately. They are vairagya, that is the dispassion to seeing and hearing and tasting, touching and smelling. Develop viveka, which is discrimination of what is real and what is unreal. So, as per Advaita, except for Brahman, nothing is real. Everything else is unreal. Then come to Shama, that is make a earnest desire to look at the defect in the sense objects and not getting attached to them. So let's say I have something to see, and seeing is just an act of seeing, and hearing is just an act of hearing. So there's nothing that I am hearing or I am seeing. So the shama is when that I comes into existence, just hit on that head. So it's only seeing and hearing. Dhamma is the self control. So we put the objects back to its center. That is, it's what it is meant to be. The organ of eye is meant to see. That's it. Not get entangled with the sight. So if we put it back to the center and turn back, both the jnana indriyas, that is the five sense of knowledge which already it has, it knows what to do. That is, the eyes knows not to hear, the ear knows not to see, the tongue knows not to smell, and the nose knows not to taste. They know what they want. So it's called jnana indriyas. And the karma indriyas would be the hands and legs and all that. So there are five karma indriyas. So the mind is withdrawn from all of this. That creates self-control. Uparati would be feeling the thoughts or freeing the thoughts from the sense objects by way of sense withdrawal. So withdrawing from the senses, that removes the self-identity. So uparati. Titiksha would be to endure all suffering and sorrows without struggle to redress them, or with an anxiety to take revenge against them. That is when sight is not okay, the sound is not okay, the taste is not okay, the touch is not okay, the smell is not okay. We want to redress it. We want to take it on somebody, because that other somebody is a person, but actually that person is also only five indriyas. So there's no point in struggling with that. So we have to put up with it and also uh, not take revenge. So I'll give an example. So on Saturday night, there was a party near my home. So 3 blocks from my apartment, there were people having a brawl of sound and dancing and shouting and howling and all that. It persisted. It started at 8:30 in the night and persisted way beyond 12:30. So 4 hours they've been jumping, and I don't know whether it's a marriage or whatever was there. So that's the sound. Now there is a person automatically made in the mind that these persons are bad and they are doing all of this and they don't know the time to sleep and all that. So I have to take it like a meditation subject. So just a sound. So if there is an irritation, let's say, That means the senses are fully operational. What if the senses were to go down to sleep? That's the shama and dhamma. So there's no sound. Outside there is sound, but inside there is no sound. So enduring all that suffering would be the titiksha. Shraddha is faith, and that is in their text. In the text, that is the scriptural text and the words of the Guru is completely accepted without any questions, and the person can practice it and see it for himself or herself. Samadhana is establishing the intellect in Brahman and nothing else in any conditions. And finally, mumukshatva is coming out of the ego sense and body idea and making a firm determination to come out of this madness right here, right now. So, all individual identities and relationships and all that is mind created, it's not really there. So, coming out of it right now is what it is all about. So, this sadhana chatushtaya with shad sampatti has to be acquired by the person within the 50 years of age. That is, he should have strengthened it within 50 years so that he can take it up as complete contemplation and withdrawal from the world from the 51st year. Then there is something possible. If the person is starting today, it might not work. So, this is the first thing that needs to be established. And the second thing should be developed. This is yama, restraining of all senses and again, because the senses are like a village. There are five senses and there are five windows with a big door. The mind is the door. So you have five windows and it's a village. So there's a lot of hustle and bustle having to undergo with. So yama is required. Niyama, one has to remove the bad thoughts and replace it by the good deeds, and should always be practiced by the wise and in the midst of a wise person. So one should have found a guru within 50th year of age and then completely devoted to that guru, because the yama and niyama are put in place. Then comes tyaga, abandoning the illusory nature of the world and instead establishing pure consciousness or Brahman, which is there everywhere and seeing everything in it. Then Maunam is not about not talking to anyone, it is more about creating an inner silence by removing senses from their objects of senses. That is, when the sight and the eye come, that's all what it is. There's nothing connecting them. So it's mauna. So when the sound comes, he is not reacting to the sound. So the taste comes, he is not reacting to the taste. Like that. Desha, so where the universe and men were not to be there, and establishing that in the mind would be the desha or the space. Our mind is filled up with names and forms, so we have to remove those names and forms, is what it is all about. So that is desha, and then the kala. These names and forms appears and disappears, and hence it is kala, which then has to be established in the mind, that this desha and kala is the one which really creates time lapse, meaning we have the past, present, and future. One who removes desha and kala is already established in Brahman. So this desha and kala appears only in Brahman, and mind projects it. So cutting this from the mind is an important step. Then comes asana, whichever posture that gives the complete experience of Brahman is the right posture. It need not be sitting cross-legged or whatever way and sitting like a log. That's not required. Siddhasana is a siddha, one who has uprooted all the kleshas or the impurities or the arishad varga. So the kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya. So all the six are removed. So he is in a highest state of consciousness and established in Siddhasana. So now he has established himself. Then Raja Yoga has to be established. That is, one stays firm in knowing and contemplating on that supreme being, which is the root of all existence. So one need to keep the mind steady by binding to that one supreme Brahman. That becomes Mula Bandha. And once he puts the Mula Bandha, he is in Udyana Bandha. That is, he is now floating and not making anything escape out of it. This bliss escaping out of it is Jalandhara Bandha. So the yogic posture of Mula Bandha, Udyana Bandha, and Jalandhara Bandha, what they physically do is a wrong thing. It might be good health wise, but it doesn't give any Brahman experience. So the Mula Bandha, Jalandhara Bandha, and Udyana Bandha have to be practiced in the mind, nothing to do with physicality. But what people do is they turn physical. The pranayama, the next one which we are going to come up, is done physical, it is mental. Then he has to develop samanatvam, equipoise, that is, he merges into the pure consciousness and doesn't worry about the body anymore, and hence experiencing bliss all the time. Drishti, not to stare at one's nose endlessly, which gives only headache. So one is to raise the vision from ordinary to subtle vision and seeing how the world is getting manifested in that pure consciousness. Then coming out of drashta, darshana, and drishyam. So normally we see the drashta, the person who is seeing, darshana, the object to be seen, and drishyam, what is being seen, should be removed totally. And that separateness is gone. It's all the same. It's all appearing in Brahman. So one needs to remove that seer, seen, and seeing, and not to the tip of the nose. So the drishti and drashta, darshana, and drishyam work in that way. Then comes pranayama, not about breathing in and breathing out and holding the breath as kumbhaka, rechaka, and all that. That looks not good as far as the Brahman experience goes. So the person should quieten all thought disturbances by realizing them as ripples in the consciousness and nothing other than that. This is true pranayama, because all of these experiences are appearing only in Brahman. Brahman is the only reality, everything else is not. So there's nothing like saying that I'm able to hold for 12 seconds and 8 seconds. That is, Rechaka has, or sorry, Puraka has 12 and Kumbhaka has 10 and Rechaka has 12, and then feeling happy about it. All of those experiences appearing in Brahman. So what one needs to do is to have the Puraka, that is breathing in, he has to breathe in with I am the Brahman, and while breathing out, he has to negate the world of plurality, which is the names and forms, which is created as called as relationship. So when I'm breathing in, it's Brahman, and when breathing out, it's only Brahman. There's nothing called in between, somebody is there. And the Kumbhaka would be to steadiness of that thought, whatever the thought is supposed to be there. The thought here is only in Brahman. And then Pratyahara, that is knowing that the Supreme Self is in all objects, and hence Pratyahara, not having a separate ahara, food for oneself. Then Dharana, so we need to have the vision of Brahman, not the Savikalpa Samadhi or the Saguna Brahman, that is wrong. Actually, nothing should be appearing. No vision of anything, any god or anything should be appearing. It should be just blank. So having the vision of Brahman in whatever object the thought may fall onto, with a steady mind, and that becomes dharana. Dhyana, which happens due to dharana, is not to rest on anything except for I am the Brahman and nothing else. So I am pure consciousness and bliss. So Satchidananda. That means the meditator should experience himself without any support or any object awareness. So there's no object. If Lakshmi is coming or Vishnu is coming or somebody is coming, that means that is not the right way to go. It is not the dhyana. There's still an issue with that. So that has to be rectified. Samadhi is all thoughts should get dissolved in that Brahman where there is no more any mind left. And with then these steps have been done, Ananda is permanent. This is the jump. So now we are in bliss, permanent abode. So now we have the procedures. Number one is world has to be negated. That is, there's nothing called as a world. If something is the world, the person should see what happens to the world when he is in deep sleep. So there is no world. That means the reality is that there is no world. Stage two is, that is, once this has happened, the stage two would be to understand the body structure and the sense objects, and also the five jnana indriyas and five karma indriyas. Stage three would be to understanding and experiencing the dangers in each of these sense organs. So, what's the problem with hearing, and what's the problem with touching and tasting and smelling and all of that? And the stage four would be to coming out of liking for body and the sense objects. Normally, we possess the body and sense object considering that they are something which has to be kept, but they have to be discarded like old worn out clothes. So they have to be removed. And stage five would be the subtle body understanding, that is the antakaranam, the mind, intellect, ego, sense, memories, and prana. They don't have themselves anything to do with the supreme, so they have to be discarded. The mind, due to its function of doubting and hesitating, is the function of the mind, so that has to be discarded. The intellect, due to its functioning and determinant of the truth of things, so only the subtle intellect is required, the gross intellect have to be discarded. And all functions of learning anything as science and technology and society and history and geography and all of that have to be thrown out at this stage. If that is not done, the person will not achieve anything, except that he will still believe in Brahman is real and the world is also real. So all of that has to be removed. So the intellect is only subtle. If there is gross indication that I need to see this, that means that has to be thrown out. Stage six would be to understand that this subtle body is created through vasanas and nothing else. That is, the antakarana is created out of the vasana. So because there is vasana, the subtle body came into existence. Then the next step would be to understand the karana sharira, or the causal body, and this is when maya comes into existence. So the maya consists of sattva guna, rajas guna, and tamo guna. So all these three gunas have to be transcended. This is where the yukti comes into existence. The subtle intellect is able to transcend this stage. And once he does that, he understands that everything is not self. Everything he's been seeing and tasting and touching and all of that is not self. So is the maya that is holding between the self and not self. The self is something beyond all of these experiences. So now he gets to see it for the very first time. And he comes to the five sheaths of Panchakosha. So now he asks a question, who am I and what is this self? And then he gets to see all the three states of existence, that is awakened state, dream state, and sleep state. And then he knows that he's beyond these three states, that is called Turiya. To get into the Turiya, he first have to grind or do the removal of all the dirty impurities in the mind, which is indicated as five koshas. So, first is the Annamaya or the food kosha. He has to understand what the body is all about and throw the body out. So, from today, there is no body. Then the Pranamaya kosha, the life force sheath, he has to throw out all the five pranas as he or she. There is nothing like my prana. It is something to do with prakriti, and that has its own nature. It has not asked me how long the prana is going to be, or apana or vyana, udana, samana. So all the five pranas have to be discarded. Then the manomaya kosha is the organs of perception that keeps on saying I and mine. That has to be removed. The mind should be removed out of itself, its very existence. Then comes the Vijnanamaya kosha, where the intellect treats itself as a jiva, and that also has to be removed. And the Anandamaya kosha, the subtlest of it, where the Ananda exists due to the objects and getting those objects, he has to transcend that. So, this at this stage, he knows that all that good things which is experienced by the mind is due to the past good deeds only. It has got nothing to do with that. So he discards all of these five koshas. So when he removes all these five koshas, the self reveals itself. So what is this self? This self can only be understood when the subtle intellect is able to see that there is Jiva and Ishvara, they both don't exist. So verse number 224 of Viveka Chudamani explains what is this all about. So he says that remove the Ishvara in your mind. There's no thing called as Ishvara, there is no thing called as Jiva. They both exist in Brahman only. So until unless this jump is made, that is, one has now got rid of the pot. Now he has to get rid of the mud or the clay. So the clay is that Ishvara. So he has to remove that. Once he jumps from here, the danger is gone. Then there is no rebirth. Because with Ishvara only the Jiva can come into existence. So now without Ishvara there is no Jiva. So both are gone. So the self is distinct from the five sheaths, is a witness of all the three states, that is the Jagrata Avastha, Swapna, and the deep sleep state. It is real and free from all modification and blemish. It should be realized as bliss, as only bliss, everlasting by the wise man, as in own self. No other self is self. So with that, what happens is the person is now in a Dvaita, non-dual. So now, what should be discarded is that inner sun or inner moon, whatever way we've been talking about the bucket and water and the moon, or the bucket, water and the sun, whichever way we can put it. All these reflections are the reflected consciousness. They truly don't have any essence. So throwing it out, meaning the Jiva and the Ishvara, both being not there, one transcends into complete bliss, which was, which is, and which will be. Does not have any distinction of I was and I am and I will be. When that is experienced, that's the state of Brahman. Now, this is very tricky situation because there's no more steps indicated in how to master this, but has to be mastered through Nididhyasana. So now we have three things. One is a Shravana, that is hearing, Manana, mentally reflecting, Nididhyasana, about experiencing by experimentation. Now the question comes, what if I'm not able to experience this? This is because of the subtle intellect not being there. It is still a gross intellect level. So you have to go back to Shravana. Something is missed there. What if I'm experiencing but not what is written in the book? You have to And Shankara has put all the smritis there, all the references there from where he has picked up. So it is there in the Shruti means that it should be an experiential reality. So if that is not happened, then you have to go back to establishing the Vairagya, Viveka, Shama, Dhamma, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhana, that route. He has to go back. There's no other way except for going back and retracing the path because something over there has missed. So mumukshatva is the important bridge which has to happen right now, and then all of those things will take place. That is the viveka and vairagya and all that. Now, this is what the way of doing. So, there are various ways through which many masters have done, like from Shankaracharya to Vidyaranya to if we can put Ramana Maharshi, then you have Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, Vivekananda, and many others who have treaded this path by giving up everything. So that giving up should be there, the sannyasa should be there, and the vairagya, these two things have to be done immediately. Otherwise, it doesn't work out. It doesn't make any sense at all. So this is on the what we call as the non-dual or Advaita, how to do it. Any questions? All okay?
Yeah, good explanation.
Okay. So this is what is to be done from Advaita.
Mm.
Now we go to what does the Buddha teaching say?
Yeah, I'm interested in that.
Okay.
To know the real difference.
Yeah. So what Buddha found out is that there is something called craving for existence, and craving for sensual, and craving for non-existence. That means something should exist and something shouldn't exist, and the senses should be enjoyable. So he first looked into this craving as an aspect. Why do we crave? Then he found out something is called as, I will put this in Pali and also explain in English. So this talks about imasmim sati idam hoti, imassa uppada idam upajjati, imasmim asati idam na hoti, imassa nirodha idam nirujjati. What it really means is that if, let's say, birth is a condition, if that is a condition, birth has a condition necessarily, then something will get dependent on that birth, which is death. No matter what anybody does, how much a person takes care of his health and how much best he eats or sleeps or protects himself by putting 100 different locks to his home, safeguards his wealth and all that, death cannot be escaped. So he started questioning like this. Ramana Maharshi questioned from who am I? So he removed all the five sheets, all the five koshas, and went into the absolute. Whereas here, this is something what that can be done to see whether do I have craving and what the craving is all about. Craving here means that there is an attraction, there is a repulsion, and there is I-ness. It's called raga, dvesha, and moha. That is the craving. So if there is a raga for existence, that is, I want to exist with something, then the death is a certain reality. Nothing can be done to change that. But however, if that birth as a condition is removed, the death also can be removed. So he found out locking and unlocking. and within this life only you can unlock it what was locked. So this is the that jump. Okay, so now we can keep on looking at with each one of them. So imasmim, that is when this is sati idam hoti, when this is there, then everything related to that will happen. If this is not there, then everything related to that will not happen. So he instead of a karma kanda view or a karmic view, 100% as karma, he looked at the conditionalities. So it's called a hetu and phala, cause and effect. So this is called law of causation. Everything has a cause. Nothing arrives here without a cause. So the karma is also there, but the for karma to arrive, there's a cause. So we have vasanas, we have the karma, we have the sankhara or the samskaras. So now these vasanas are there, which causes this existence to happen. What if the vasanas are removed? Then there is no karma. If there is no karma, there is no samskara. So that's how this thing will flow. So both believe in karma, both believe in how to remove it. So Advaita also promises the liberation in this life, and Buddha Dharma also talks about the liberation in this life. But this is the main thing. First is craving, and second thing we need to see the links. This is called as law of dependent origination. That is, if the birth is there, then the death is going to be there. Then we're going to ask how the birth comes. It's because there is an idea for existence, and why this existence comes to be is because we have something to we want to hold on to. And why do we hold on to is because we have craving there to hold on to. And why do we crave something is because we have feelings, and feelings for good experience, feeling appearing as bad experience, and feeling as neutral. And why these feelings happen is because it gets connected to the five sense, or rather six senses, including the mind. And why that happens is because of the nama and rupa, name and form. And why that name and form happens is because of the consciousness appearing in each one of these senses. And why it appears in those senses is because of avidya, which is ignorance. And why this ignorance happens is because the fermentation called as asavas. So this is the link of dependent origination. Now this also looks like theory, but then he gave a practical thing to work on. What is this practical thing? It's basically the nature of things. So what is in nature? What is in nature with me, and what is in nature with everyone and everything? The first nature is anicca nature. That is, everything perishes moment to moment. There's nothing which is not perishing. So let's take breath, that is perishing. Let's take day, that is perishing. Let's take years, that is perishing. Let's take food, that perishes. So anything at all in this life perishes. Okay. And whatever perishes, which the person tries to protect it from non perishing, is dukkha there. So the dukkha is the only outcome. The suffering is the only outcome, because what is perishing, we're trying to safeguard it. Why is it perishing? Because this nature of the world itself is to perish. So we are saying the eons of existence will go away and another existence will come. That means it's perishing. So the food taken now as breakfast, in next 4 hours, it's perished. It is consumed. So again, has to be refilled. Then again in dinner. Then if we look at the house, we have painted the building or done a lot of works, but it perishes. It keeps on diminishing. And we have, that means that we are taking dukkha all the time in the name of sukha. So nitya is a feeling that nothing perishes. When I look at my younger days photograph and to now, there is a lot of perishing, but we use another good word called as growth. so that the perishing is not considered. So in life, what we are doing is we are giving a name and form for what perishes and make it look non-perishable. Example, we give the name of a wife and a husband. Now the husband, as per me, doesn't perish because he's there for life, but the body is perishing. So if the body goes away, the husband goes away. So that is now suffering. Same thing with wife and same thing with children. Same thing with every different experiences we've been having in life. So the years are perishing, everything is perishing because the nature is perishing. No. And we come to anatta, which is something is said to be personal. This is mine. So what I consider as mine is this pain is mine, this pleasure is mine, this wife is mine, this husband is mine, this house is mine, this everything is mine. But nothing is really mine. It's only the five senses coming together with five sense objects creates that impression of mine. As soon as that object goes away, that mine also goes away. Let's say the wife dies, it says my wife died. Now from that day it is only a photograph. But still that my wife exists. But that wife came into existence through what? Through food. And food came into existence through mud. So what appeared in mud went back to the mud. But this strong hold of atta, that is myself, holds the view that I exist. So if we are able to see this, whatever is perishing is dukkha, and whatever is dukkha has no personal in it, because it's you can able to see that nothing is being held by that person. He is helplessly seeing that everything is going away. Like somebody says that I will not allow the sunrise to happen because I have not got up. Sorry, the sunrise will automatically happen. I will not allow any flights to operate out of this place. Sorry, it will. If it has to operate, it will operate. If it doesn't have to operate, it will not operate. And I will ensure that my neighbor doesn't go for a walk. Sorry, if he wants to go for a walk, he will. If he doesn't want to go for a walk, he will not. I will not allow any diseases to come into my home. Again, sorry, you don't have any control. I will not allow the digestion to happen. So if we really see wherever we are putting this I, it happens automatically. It's just a process. When you take the food, put it in the mouth, goes inside, nobody knows what happens. If you take a sound and it goes inside, nobody knows what happened to that sound after it was heard. If you take a sight and then try seeing after that what happened, nobody knows. So this is what is the anatta is all about. So this three is required for contemplation. Unlike a lot of books and a lot of literature that has to be read to understand and contemplate, this is a very good thing to do. That is anicca dukkha anatta. That is everything is perishing, and whatever perishes has a dukkha in it, and then there is no person or personal about it. It's just a process. It just happens. As long as the condition matches, it happens. If there is no condition, it doesn't happen. So the nirvana, what we're talking about, or the Brahman state of experience, is when we transcend these three and see what reality lies. So he talks about the experiencing the five sense and the five sense objects and how they interact and who connects them. Understand the five aggregates and experience them. That if there are five aggregates there is a rupa, that is the form, and there is a feeling associated with it, and there is a perception associated with it. Then there are a lot of preparations done on it, and the consciousness which connects all of them. So what it really means here is that if I take 1 hour ago or my walking experience a couple of hours ago, It is just an experience. There is nothing as now we can see as reality. This is exactly what Shankara came up with when he looked at the world is unreal. It's really unreal because 2 hours ago, when I went for a walk, the situation, the experience, and all that what I had then has gone into history. Nothing I can do, even if I was walking with my wife, is also history. If I was talking to somebody at that time, is again a history. So I can only say I was talking to so and so, I was walking with so and so. But right now it is not there. So the feelings, the perception, and the preparation what I was doing for walking, that is, I was jogging or walking or whatever I was doing and how I was doing it, how good I was doing it, that experience is gone. But I can recall that experience through the memory, through the consciousness. So now when we look at the Brahman Satya Jagat Mithya, this Jagat is created out of Brahman. And same thing is here. So this long queue, what Buddha has done is a very short one. You understand the five aggregates and you will be able to get to know what is really happening. That Brahman is the only Satya and Jagat is Mithya. Then, observing the fermentation. Fermentation is in sense that we have brought in a lot of these negative or the dirty things called tamasic. So they are dark matter. So if we were to remove them, then we are good. So one is the kama, the sensuality. Then we have brought in the bhava, that is, I want to become this, I want to become that. Then we have brought in the views. Okay, and the fourth is myself, I exist. So if we go by what we just now covered on Advaita, there is, Shankara says that Ishvara and Jiva, they both are unreal. And as long as I have Ishvara, I'm going to get life. As long as I'm going to have Jiva, I'm going to get life. Because I exist in these two understanding. The moment I transcend them, it goes away. So this is the fermentation. Then when we understand the dukkha, that this whole thing is dukkha, it's a mass of suffering. The world, the jagat, is an illusion and it's full of suffering. The maya is full of suffering. Then we let go of that by understanding the Four Noble Truths. So one is to experience the Four Noble Truths and one is to experience the dependent origination. So what happens here, once we get into that state, we'll understand another concept called as Sankata, which is conditions. So there are conditions which come into force and they go in 5 stages. So they arise, they develop, they mature, then they wane off, and then they go away. So let's take Corona as an example. They arise. So corona as a name has been given. So there is an arising, and we call it as COVID-19 because it started in 2019. So there is a name given to it. Then there is development of it. So it started developing from last December onwards and then spreading throughout the world. So we are in the grip of that. Then it matures itself. It comes to the height. So the infection goes to the height. And either the antibodies will get modified to fight that virus or the person himself will collapse. Either way, that's what is going to happen. So this is the third. Then it wanes off. It keeps on going away because of the vaccination, because of whatever the antibodies which is generated by the body or whatever it is, it wanes off and then finally disappears. Okay, these are the 5 stages. So anything as an experience we have will get into these 5 stages. And that is the reason it's called as loka. Loka always goes with this 5. Anything in this world. So be it the birth, be it development, be it whatever we call it, will ultimately goes through that. So when a child is born, then we say it is started. Then the child develops, then the child is coming to its maturity, called as an adult life, then it starts waning away, which we call it as middle age and old age, and finally disappears. So anything in this world created goes through these 5 stages. So it's called as Sankata in Pali, but we can call it as condition. So we have two things then. We have these conditions and we have these dependencies. This whole world, whatever we relate to, is conditioned and it's dependent on the same condition. So every experience is dependent on that condition. If that condition matches, then it works. If the condition doesn't matches, it doesn't work. Let's say I want today to be a day with sunshine. That's the condition what I'm putting. But reality is it's cloudy because the condition is not met. So my thought process of how it would be as a sunshine no longer works because that condition is not met. So the dependency cannot be put into existence. So everything as a loka world is conditioned and also dependent. Whereas nirvana is unconditioned. It's got nothing to do with condition. So when we look from Advaita, we can replace this word Brahman with nirvana or whatever we want to call that as, just as a placeholder. It is unconditioned. So what Shankara is saying is that you leave the conditioned and jump to the unconditioned. Unconditioned reality is the only reality. Everything else is an illusion. Buddha also says that this is conditioned. There is something unconditioned. So you drop this conditions. Then you are already in unconditioned. And there is the process to do that, or the procedure to do that, which we will go in a second. So once we understand this, we lose 5 hindrances which hold this from not appearing. So he found out there are 5 hindrances. One is the sensual lust, which is there, of enjoying with 5 senses. Then the second one is ill will. That is the second hindrance. Third one is sluggishness and slowness for liberation. So people, I will say, why don't I do it tomorrow? Today is, I'm busy. So this is the sluggishness and slowness. This is one of the hindrance. Then the fourth one is the restlessness and worry or anxiety, whichever way. Instead of worry, we can put anxiety. So this is another hindrance. And skeptical doubt, whether this path will lead to liberation or not. Similarly, when we look at Shankara, when we come to working out, we'll get doubt. Because as long as we are Dvaitis, it's not going to work. Meaning when we are dual, non-dual will never work. So the faith will not be there. How can this be possible? Ishvara is real. How can anybody say that Ishvara is unreal? Sorry. In my view, this is wrong. So Ishvara is real. Maybe the Jivi is not real, but Ishvara is real. So again, duality. Because with Ishvara only, Jivi can come. So this is the crux of jumping. Similarly, on this, if we remove these 5 hindrances, we can literally create the bridge to move from conditioned to the unconditioned. Then what happens is that in the Shankara, he has not spoken about the dhyana, in what all levels of dhyana that has to be done. Whereas in the case of Buddha, he explained the 4 rupa dhyanas and the 5 or 4 arupa dhyanas, which was also practiced even before Buddha. It's not that something was created by him. The ninth one, wherein you completely transcend both the form and the formless, is what is nirvana all about. So that's a jump, what he's talking about, and that is the ninth dhyana, ninth stage of dhyana. There are 9 stages here. So let's start with looking at the procedures here. One is that we see the process in everything by experiencing the three lakshanas, or the three attributes, or the three nature of things, and we get to know this, what the sense and sense objects are doing and how they get connected, and we get to experience and see how the craving and grasping becomes the condition for getting new birth. So that means we'll see the dependent origination, or paticca samutpada, in action, and that helps in reducing the craving, attraction and repulsion, and reduces the dukkha, and a person starts cleaning off the 5 hindrances. And once he does that, he will establish the satipatthana, which is the foundation of awakening or mindfulness or awareness, and get rid of the nama and rupa. Shankara also talks about nama and rupa, and Buddha gives how to break that nama and rupa. So both of them talk about the same thing in 2 different ways and 2 different steps. And that once the nama and rupa is removed, the person's view of I and myself will go away. So that removes the self view. And in the case of Shankara, when you start the practice, the nididhyasana, the self view goes away. So then it becomes non-dual. There's no self apart from the universal self. There's only one single self, universal. There's no individual self. So that is the reason it's called non-dual. Even here, you will lose that self view. There's no longer self. So once we get past here, then we can compare our progress ourselves. And this is not there in the Shankara teaching on how to really see it yourself. You require a guru, whereas here you can really see it yourself. So once you know the concept and you know what these aggregates are, and you know the meaning of the experiential of the dependent origination along with the nature of things, the person becomes a stream entry. With the stream entry, the person blocks the entry into the apayas, which are dangers. There are 4 things which can happen. One is the animal realm of existence, one is a preta realm of existence, and one is the hellish realm of existence, and one is the hungry ghost. So these are the 4 states of existence the person can remove. So he will be at least be born as a deva, or he will be born as a human being. And he also says that this human form would be for 7 lives at the max, before which he'll get liberated. Then if he has removed that is, at this stage the person would have removed the self view, and he would have got rid of the what I can say, the doubt what he had, whether this path leads me or not. And the third important thing is the rituals. Similarly, Shankaracharya puts in the Viveka Chudamani that these 3 things are possible. You will get rid of self-view. You will also get rid of the rites and rituals, because they don't lead to liberation. They only lead to bondage. And the skeptical doubt is gone. So in non-dual Advaita, also there is these 3 things which are put in place. So once that happens, once you can see that you have already achieved this, you can be rest assured that you will not be born as any one of these beings, hellish realms of existence. Instead, you will be reborn as a human. And once the person will move from the possession orientation, which again Shankara talks about how to remove the possession, and the Buddha gives step by step instruction how to remove the possession orientation, the person reaches a state called as once returner. That is, he will come to this womb level existence, that is human existence, once only, because he doesn't have any possession orientation in the mind. He doesn't possess anything like wife or husband, my home and my cash balance, and I want to work in this country, I want to do this, I want to do that. All that possession is gone. Okay. This is what even Shankara talks about, that you require that urgency in looking at removing yourself from this womb level of entries. So they both talk the same thing, but in a different ways. And here again, you get a step-by-step instruction how you can do this once returner. And there is another stage a person reaches called as non-returner, when he completely from his mind the kama chanda, that is the sensual lust and the ill will, is gone for anything at all. Meaning he doesn't have, or she doesn't have, anything called as getting upset with people or with objects. Neither the person gets attracted by that objectification. So raga and dvesha are totally gone. With the raga and dvesha totally gone, that person becomes a non-returner. That is, he doesn't return back to this womb entry again, but he will be born in the realm of Brahma. And from then he needs to now work out on getting liberated. Same thing on the Advaita or the non-dual. The person gets into a Brahma realm of existence, and from then he has to work out to get out of the samsara. And the fourth one, he becomes an arhat right here, right now, meaning to say that he gets liberation here. And this is the jump of doing it. When he does that, all the five other fetters goes away. So he would have inclination of being born in a fine material existences, that goes away, and fine immaterial existences, that goes away. Then the restlessness is also gone. Then the mana, which is the vanity or the I-ness, the little bit subtle I-ness which remained, that also goes away. And then the avidya, that is ignorance, is completely removed. With ignorance getting removed, the person doesn't exist. He is a dead person in a live body. He or she doesn't have any qualities to be called anymore as a being. They're just passing their time in the samsara till that life comes to an end. So these are the five things what can be experienced, what can be seen. And this can be compared, meaning compared in the sense that a person can compare himself, and he has given a thing called as a bodhapakya dhamma, which is nothing but 37 factors of awakening. Bodhi means that one who has understood the Four Noble Truth. Pakya means the process. Dhamma means the teaching. Here it can be a Dhamma as a teaching and Dhamma as a nature. So he knows the nature of things. So once he knows the nature of the things, then everything is straightforward. So a person can go to that and see where he or she is, and looking at where the steps are followed, where the steps are not followed. So this is the benefit of the Buddha Dhamma or the Buddha teaching on step by step how one can take that last jump. That doesn't mean that the Shankara's non-dual is not a good path. It is indeed a good path, and it is better path than any other path. In the Hindu literature, if we were to take it, nothing can beat Advaita in whatever form it is. It's one of the beautiful way of putting the reality. Every person is dual, and he has to go to non-dual. And those people who cannot go to non-dual, they still end up being in the samsara in the same state forever. because Brahman also is real, Jagat is also real. So what is unreal is treated as real, and hence the person keeps on coming back to the samsara. So the Shankara's non-dual is the best thing considering the tradition from which the person is coming. But if the person would like to investigate further and get into even more faster path than what is in non-dual, he can take the Buddha Dhamma, because that lays down step by step instruction till the last. So Advaita gives a very excellent answer to what should be done. But however, there are not suitable answers on how it should be done. This how should be found out by oneself. Whereas the Buddha teaching gives answers to what and how, including every step by step instruction. It's just a user manual where you just follow it properly, and you should get either one of those four things what is mentioned. Either the person will become a stream entry, or he can become a once returner, he might become a non-returner, or he will completely eliminate this world of existence. So the four things are definitely possible if one were to follow. So if we were to conclude on this, we can look at Advaita is very excellent in the beginning, since it establishes what is real and unreal, gives clarity on the concept, and helps in getting rid of the individual or self view. That is the most important thing which has to be necessarily done, that is come out of the self view. However, Advaita is confusing in the middle, as there are many concepts one needs to know or one needs to get aware of and master them in order to give up the pot. But once done, a person gets rid of that individual self and at least enjoys the Atmananda there. So it's slightly confusing there, but he should or she should figure it out, should find a guru who can explain these, and then definitely the person can do it. However, the Advaita does not give information in the end how to do the last jump, what should be done to take that. So, leaving the clay, that is the Ishvara view, is also required in order to attain the Brahmananda. So, there creates voidness or doubt on how to do it, and the person have to retreat back. This is where many people get stuck. But those people who have got rid of this, in the case of Ramakrishna Paramahamsa and Totapuri, Ramakrishna Paramahamsa had this Ishvara and self as idea. He was able to let go of self, but he was not unable to let go of the Kali, which is Ishvara. And Totapuri showed him the way of how to let go of Ishvara. Once he let go of Ishvara, he was able to attain the Samadhi for 5 days in Brahman. And this is what is required. Vivekananda too struggled on this, on how to let go of Ishvara. Ramana Maharshi also struggled because he had to go to the Anandamaya Kosha and then start questioning what next. That Ishvara has to go. That myself along with Ishvara has to go. Myself somehow will go. The pot I am able to throw out, but not the clay. Okay, this is when the person gets stuck. This is the last step. So, Atmananda is guaranteed. Now, we come to what's in the Buddha Dhamma in terms of these excellent and whatever I spoke about. So, Buddha Dhamma is excellent in the beginning since it establishes the Shila, so the morality aspect of it, and then helps a person to attain to Samadhi. So by understanding the concept and gets him to the dhyanas, and then gives him the wisdom, the prajna comes through. Even in the Advaita, you get the prajna, you get the complete wisdom. So initially, both look same. That is, whether we follow the Buddha Dhamma or we follow the Advaita, they look the same because they establishes the morality 100%. In Buddha Dhamma also we need to attain the morality, without which samadhi is not possible. Same thing with Shankara. We need to establish the morality. Moral foundation have to be there. Yama and Niyama and all that, whatever we spoke about, has to be 100% established. And then the person can meditate and see what happens. So the nididhyasana, which is the meditation, will not work out well if that morality is missed out. Okay. Then in the Buddha teaching, the person gets into stage of understanding the Four Noble Truths. So once he experiences the Four Noble Truths, it helps him to have an excellent in the middle, because now he can track the progress. In the Shankara teaching, it gets little bit tricky because the pot has to be removed. Here he can check. So the step is there. The steps are there on how to identify whether he's able to drop the pot or not, and the self view is gone, and all that he can verify. So the wisdom becomes stronger and stronger, and that's establishing the ninth dhyana at ease. And that is very tough, but by this progress a person can really do it, and he comes to know what the consciousness of the chitta does and how this experience is being happening. So he can get rid of those five fetters what we spoke about, that is the sensual lust, and then the ill will and all that what we spoke about, it goes away. So that makes him a non-returner at least. And it is excellent in the end because it doesn't stop the steps, it takes you till the end. It doesn't make you worry about, now if I drop Ishvara, what is going to happen. That means if I drop the clay, what happens? I've left the pot. I've got to know that pot is made out of clay. It can be named as any pot. Now I know for sure this clay is made out of the same matter. Okay. And I know that these pots, as wife and husband and children and house and all that, will break. But there is no pot as such inside. I only see only clay. There is misunderstanding of pot. So there is misunderstanding as a wife and a husband and children and house and property and all that. Now I know the mistake. So I'm letting go of this mistake. So there is no longer anything called as a wife and husband and all that. Very good. This much of clarity once achieved is very good. So the Atmananda automatically happens. Now the question comes, how do you drop this clay? Because with clay only pot is made. With Ishvara only the life is coming. The jiva is coming. So one has to drop that as well and believe in Brahman. Brahman is the only reality. Everything, including Ishvara, appears in Brahman. So that means this clay is also appearing in Brahman only. So there is no individuality in whichever form it can be taken. So the saguna side also has to be removed. And this is the difficulty in Advaita. It's not about dropping the pot. Dropping the pot for a normal person is not possible. So for a spiritual person is very much possible. So he or she can establish that. But dropping the clay, when we come here, the person can drop the clay as well, because there is step how this can be done. So using the paticca samutpada or the dependent origination, along with the nature of things, a person can let go of that clay as well and attain complete liberation from the samsara in this life. So this is the difference between the Advaita or the non-dual and the Buddha teaching. But both almost go hand in hand. In certain cases, they almost seem the same, but the steps are different, and the experience almost would be the same. When a person gets into non-dual experience and a person getting into the ninth jhana or the ninth dhyana experience, he would look the same. He would look the world as no different than what an Advaiti would have seen. But the difference he lies in that letting go. That he might get stuck in Advaita, but here the person will never get stuck, because when he comes back from that experience, he can still work out in the samsara, not getting attached to it. But when he comes back from, that is in Advaita, when he comes back, he might get literally not able to remember anything at all. So it might look, everything might start looking like an illusion to this person, and that might bring him in trouble. So one of the danger in Advaita non-dual is that a person might get stuck into something called as no perception at all of anything. So that is very dangerous. Meaning, say that he doesn't know how to come back now. He has to come back. His mind stays in literally a domain which he cannot understand what is happening. So if properly practiced, he should be able to come back, and then he knows how to jump between the world and no world, the world of five senses, and how this object comes to be and how it perishes, and no world when nothing comes to be and it's all in Brahman. So then he can see the illusory nature called Maya. So Advaita promises liberation in this life, and Buddha promises also liberation in this life, and both are very good in terms of this. The difference here, steps, and here some steps are missing and the last step is completely missing. So if one were to implement the last step, how it should be done, that person can get liberated. That's it. At least at a,
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, sure. At a very high level.
At one shot, you have done both.
Yes, so that person wanted, I thought this also will help, because we've been talking about what's the last step.
Yeah.
So
Now, some attached questions around this.
yeah, sure.
Initially, the Buddhism was their teaching. It was reaching all the people in India, or it was reaching only some set of people? Why this Buddhism teaching is not strongly remained like Advaita teaching? See, Advaita, Dvaita, and Vishishadvaita strongly there in India, but why this Buddhism is not? Because such a nice, beautiful thing, very close to Advaita. The reason for not people following it to like Advaita.
Well, there are many reasons in that it is much before Advaita, number one. Number two, when Buddha was there was more of rituals. And even Shankaracharya rejected rituals, and Madhvacharya rejected rituals. Ramanujacharya rejected rituals, saying that this is not the way for liberation. Beyond that point. So now the issue with Buddha teaching, after 500 years of Buddha, the whole concept got changed and merged into so many other things, because the Nalanda University started, and then the kings who started patronizing them, they patronized all kind of the faith or philosophies and all that. So it was a combination of philosophies. So what really came out of that was a sect called as Mahayana, and it got split up into Theravada, that is in Sri Lanka and all that, and then the that is because this is before Nalanda, when Ashoka sent his emissaries. So at that time it was good enough, but got distorted to a certain extent. That is in Sri Lanka and Burma. These are the two countries where it remained almost intact. But when the Nalanda University started, and when various philosophies got started merged up, or various philosophies started to emerge, then what happened? The different worshipping and all that also got entangled with it. So it was called as Shunyatavada. So from then onwards, that is 5 century AD, 5 AD or 5 CE, common era. If you were to take from then onwards, it was called as a Shunyatavada. So commonly, Buddha Dharma is called as a Shunyatavada, but it is not. It has got nothing to do with Shunyata.
Yeah, correct. It is very close to Advaitam.
Yeah, it is. In fact, if I were to go in detail and show you the step by step instruction of most of it, you will feel that, wow, this is exactly
See,
what we do.
I got one understanding in my today's reading. I'm telling you, morning, a lot of coincidence happens. The reason given is for Dvaita, Advaita, Vishishta, Advaita, and all that. Every household there's something called a puja room. When because it is there with the grahasthas.
Correct.
For them to follow the next. So once this kind of education is there within home, nobody can destroy. But Buddhism teaching was all stored in a what you call their another temple or where this sannyasis say, na? It's called what? I don't know, monastery. Somewhere. It's all stored only such places, all their teaching. A person called Khilji or somebody, he came and destroyed all this throughout India. That's the reason this was available in Tibet, because Tibet they have considered outside of India, they have not attacked. But even though it is gone to, for example, to Japan and China and all that, there it is not practiced in the true sense, because I think again it is not available within their homes, because somebody is required to teach. It was more or less, it was there in a central location. Whenever you have a knowledge in a central location, if somebody destroys, then it is not available with the families. So the best people to retain any of this spiritual knowledge is the grahasthas, because they understand, they practice, their children also learn. Going to school and learning is only, it is a temporary kind of thing. But if you learn within your home, anything like this, it remains lifelong. That is what one justification I got it in today's from somewhere. Then I just wanted to verify that with you, because coincidentally you are also explaining the same thing. So is it because of this fight happened, or is it because of that external people came, attacked, and the remote from India?
No. It's not like that. This is that whatever happened to the Nalanda University.
Mm-hmm.
See, Buddha was in 527 BCE, before the Common Era.
Yeah.
Okay. So when we came into 1st century to 10th century, okay, that time the Nalanda University, Takshashila University, and Vikramshila University got created.
Yes.
Okay, all these three universities thrived for 1,000 years, in which all the religious and all the spiritual practices and everything was integrated, just like what Annie Besant wanted to do, called as the Theosophical Society.
Yes.
Similarly was done by the kings of the past, where they merged everything.
Correct. Natya Shastra, Ayurveda.
Yes. So
and
they
then
merged. Yes. So
Sangeeta, everything was available there. Veda, Upanishad, Buddhism.
Yes, that is correct. So when the Muslim invasion happened, that was in 1100 AD or CE. So that burned the entire Nalanda University. So his name was Bhaktiar Khilji.
Khilji, correct.
He came 13 times to India. Okay, and in the 13th time he was able to destroy the entire heritage. It is by which time the Chinese traveler Fa Yan and Huan Sang and all these people had carried a lot of books out of here to China through Tibet. And by which time there were this Tibetan people who, that is the priest, or what we can say Lama, or they were actually Brahmins who were practicing a form of Buddha's teaching with Upanishad. So that one is the one which is now called as the Tibetan Buddhism. Okay, that was carried to Tibet and Bhutan and Nepal and Sikkim and all these places. Okay, and the person who did that is by he was named as Guru Padma Sambhava. So he is the person who took it to these places. But before that only the lot of distortion had happened. So there were a lot of sects which got created, and then since the kings started not patronizing afterwards, the Buddhism, in whichever way it was, it spread outside but not within India. And by the 1400 AD, or rather even earlier to it, because of Shankara, and then due to Ramanuja, and further to the Madhvacharya, it went out of India, because then there were no patronage, and the Brahminical way of outlook again got re-established. Okay, so they could not understand what it's not about whether it is centralized or decentralized. See, if you look at Sri Lanka, or in Malaysia, or in we can say Cambodia, then you can come to Burma and all that. They follow. There are lay followers, and they only follow Buddha teaching. So it's not that it is not there in everybody's home. It is there in that. I went to the Sri Lankan home, and he has like what we have in our homes, like a puja room. They also have. They don't have a puja room as per se, because there is no puja to be done except for keeping one Buddha statue. But the books and everything is there. So that's called Theravada. That is, Thera means elder, and Vada is the saying of that elder. And then they called it a Hinayana. All of these subjects were called as Hinayana, and they created another called as Mahayana, bigger vehicle. So this is a problem. But if you come to the pure or real Buddha teaching, you can get into the same state what you could get in Advaita. Advaita don't have the steps, even though he has written it very well. The last step is not there, but before that, how to see Brahman and how to experience it, all that is there, and it's very beautiful. So if anybody follows Viveka Chudamani completely, thoroughly, correctly, and gets into this act before 60, he should be able to get into Atmananda state. That's for sure.
I need to leave. I need to leave, Vilas.
Same thing here. Even I have a meeting at 10. Okay, so we'll do one thing. We'll continue on this tomorrow.